So today, I would say the topic of today's talk is and morning is awakening out of autopilot. And I think it's through the practice of meditation, first and foremost, that gives us the opportunity to see the patterns, the visual patterns that we have. And then give us the opportunity to do something about it. So whenever I'm doing one of these and I use a word like autopilot, that I assume I know what it means because I hear it all the time and read it, but I like to know what Merriam-Webster thinks of the word. So autopilot, well, the first definition is about airplanes and cars. Okay. But the second definition is a state or condition in which activity or behavior is regulated automatically in a predetermined or instinctive manner. That again. A state or condition in which an activity or behavior is regulated automatically in a predetermined or instinctive manner. I think we all can find places in our lives where that comes into play. The obvious ones are, driving somewhere that we've gone to 1,000 times, or maybe the first time. Now that we got Google Maps, it tells us when to turn, so we don't even need to pay attention to that. Do we know at the moment, while we're in autopilot mode, do we know we're in autopilot mode? Or are we just kind of floating on through? What are we missing while we're going through our moments using our instinctive ways? Do we care? And sometimes do we just want to be mindless and go about, or we want to actually spend our waking moments on this earth, in this human body, paying attention? My guess is that the reason we're here today is because we want to at least make the effort to pay attention more than not. And as we are well aware, it's creating a new habit patterns within our mind. And that is certainly not easy. It takes a great desire and willingness. It takes tremendous effort. And possibly more important than those two is a level of compassion for self and others. So I know I've read this before, and you've probably heard me read this before, but I think that when we're talking about habit change, this really sums it up. And it's the autobiography in short chapters by Portia Nelson. And basically, she was at a writer's workshop and she was asked to write an autobiography of her life in 5 short chapters. So this is what she wrote. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find my way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I am in this same place. But it isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's a habit. But my eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. I think that outlines, how we get lost and caught in our habitual ways. Seeing it, using awareness to see the possibility and to see that we have the capability of change. But to finally get there, we really have to change almost everything about how we perceive and how we look at ourselves and the world around us. We are comprised, as said, by our habitual habits. In many ways, we're handcuffed to them. They inform absolutely everything that we do and think. But the good news is that we do have the keys to those handcuffs. We have in us the innate nature, the innate goodness, the innate qualities to walk down that new street. So I'm pretty sure I've told my story before, but just to, recap, I spent most of my life trapped in addiction of drugs and alcohol. Started at a very early age, preteens, and didn't set myself free from that until my mid-40s. And looking back on that, I could not live life on life's terms. I wanted what I wanted and I wanted it now. Of course, I was seeking happiness in all the wrong places. And I built up a tremendous amount of negative habits, mostly escapism. And it's through my recovery that I found meditation. And I started meditating. I think I was watching YouTube videos when YouTube was first coming out, and watching or listening to some talks and trying to understand the nature of reality, to understand the nature of myself. And through meditation, I started to get interested in Buddhism. And that was kind of my guiding light, and has been my guiding light. So once I made a decision that was the direction I wanted to go, I went to the bookstore to get a couple of books. I didn't know what I was looking for. When I went to the spirituality section, found the two shelves of Buddhism books. And the first book that struck out at me was The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama. Happiness, that I wanted that. And what a better teacher than the Dalai Lama, right? I didn't understand but a few words in that entire book. It was way beyond what I was looking for at that moment. But the second book that I picked up was called Awakening the Buddha Within. And it's by Lama Surya Das. And I read the back, and it says, the radical and compelling message of Buddhism tells us that each of us has the wisdom, awareness, love, and power of the Buddha within, yet most of us are too open, too often like a sleeping Buddhas. Well, I have that within. Also, Lama Surya Das is a New York born Jew. Well, if a Jew from New York can become a Lama, certainly a Jew from Ohio has the opportunity to find the Buddha within. And what this book specifically talks about is the Four Noble Truths in the Eightfold Path. And that was exactly what I needed at that moment. And in this moment, setting that guidepost for ethics, for wisdom and concentration. And in many ways, the Eightfold Path has become my higher power. It guides me in everything that I do. But yet, even with all this knowledge, wisdom, ethics, meditating on a daily basis, autopilot still kicks in. Any mundane activity or suffering can lead to that autopilot just kicking in. And all it is really just putting on blinders. Earlier this week, I fell into a habit pattern that I used to have of I was working on a project, it wasn't going well, so self-doubt started kicking in, just a ton of negative self-talk took over. And it really set me back into a depressive state that I really struggled for several days to get out of. I was well aware of it this time and able to see it for what it was. And I was able to really just sit with it until it was ready to release itself from me, rather than trying to force it, rather than get angry. Why is this happening again? I just allowed it to be. And I think allowing it the space to be there helped it to eventually go away. So I think for me and for many, though, the path to awareness starts with formal seated meditation, like we're doing today. I don't believe there is a shortcut that we can take from that. Because what we're doing as we're sitting is we're training our mind, okay, to be present with whatever is happening right now, okay, and utilizing all of our senses, whether listening to the birds outside, baby crying, our ache in our body, maybe a smell, a sight, memory, and just observing those experiences without judging them. And like was said earlier, coming back to ourselves with kindness and compassion, with that self-talk, rather than frustration and anger. When we're on autopilot, our minds are usually filled with stories, memories, negative self-talk, criticism that really generally have nothing to do with what's happening in this very moment. So as we're sitting and we can see that, we can see it come up and not get caught in that story. And as the instruction says, come back to the breath, come back to the present moment. And then we have the ability to see it when autopilot is kicking in. We may not see it at the very beginning. It may take a few moments, minutes. But when we see it, now we have the choice to do something about it. Our mind really has a mind of its own. We have very little control over our thoughts. Eventually we do. But I love the image of our thoughts dragging us around like a cow in a Indian market. When we're just going from shop to shop, really not paying attention to anything that's going on around us. And that's really how we lose control of our lives. And we act in ways that actually bring us more confusion and more chaos when we're not paying attention. When our minds are busy, discursive, and thinking of control me, we're engaging in a bad habit, something negative. And what happens when we do that continually is we start stirring up the mud, jealousy, anger, and pride. And then what happens is the mind has no choice but to become familiar with those languages of negativity and continue to build it further. In a rather disturbing way, that negativity becomes comfortable because that's what we know. And for me, making that shift and finding moments of peace and contentment early on in this practice was extremely uncomfortable. I didn't know what that felt like. The more that shift was able to transfer, the more moments of peace and contentment, the more comfortable that became. And I wasn't seeking the chaos as much. It is taught in the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path that suffering arises from clinging to impermanent things. And autopilot reinforces this clinging by numbing us to the present moment. Really, everything is impermanent. Recognizing this impermanent nature of thoughts and feelings allows us to detach from them and see more clearly. So knowing this, and I think intellectually we know that nothing lasts forever, but we don't know it in our heart. So being able to sit from a heart mind and watch those suffering moments pass without grasping onto them, pushing them away, or ruminating about them, truly leads to minimizing our suffering and creating space for more contentment. Similarly, when we're happy, we can make the effort to extend that happiness. You know, knowing that that too also will pass. One of my other favorite books is The Heart of the Buddha's Teaching by Thich Nhat Hanh. And he talks a little bit about realizing well-being. Read a little bit from this book. He says, when we have a toothache, we know that not having a toothache is happiness. But later, when we don't have a toothache, we don't treasure our non-toothache. Practicing mindfulness helps us to learn to appreciate the well-being that is already there. With mindfulness, we treasure our happiness and can make it last longer. He says, I always ask psychotherapists, why do you only talk to your clients about suffering? Why not help them touch the seeds of happiness that are also there? Psychotherapists need to help their patients to be in touch with the third noble truth, which is the cessation of suffering. I encourage them to practice walking meditation, tea meditation with their patients in order to water the seeds of joy in them. So with that, what I'd like to do now is a 20-minute meditation. But this time, I want us to label our thoughts. Okay, and not just thinking, but go a little bit deeper into past, future, story, those types of things. Very important to try and do that with a voice of compassion. Okay? We know that we're not going to stop our minds from thinking. So let's start with the base of compassionate talk back to ourselves. And then after the silent meditation portion, we're going to do a tea meditation for about 10 minutes. Okay. And maintain that awareness of thought while we get up and get some tea. And then we'll discuss our observations after. Okay. You will notice me get up to turn the water during the meditation, but wait for the bell to get up yourselves. Okay. So, welcome back. Um, Through our day-to-day activities, we are rarely, if ever, aware of how much that our mental habits rob us from our present moment awareness and experience. I think we can clearly see it while we're sitting in practice. But as we're walking throughout our day or running throughout our day, the thoughts that might go through our head are things like, if I only had this, everything would be perfect. So and so doesn't like me. I can't do this because X, Y, Z. And really these mental habits, all they're doing is distorting the experiences right in front of us. They're like wearing a really dark pair of sunglasses that really inhibits our view. And what we're practicing here today is taking those off and building the capacity for clearly seeing. Creating that spatial awareness. And that spatial awareness gives us a choice. Individually, we are responsible to create that change. There is nobody outside of us that can do it for us. We can read all the books we want, listen to all the talks we want, sit and meditate all we want. But exertion is necessary to accomplish anything, spiritually or worldly. When teaching meditation to first timers, I always ask if anybody plays an instrument. Does anybody play an instrument? Yeah. What do you play?
Clarinet.
Clarinet. First time you picked up a clarinet, how good were you? Pretty bad, pretty squeaky. Yeah. After practice, we got better. Jimi Hendrix, one of my guitar heroes. Pretty sure the first time he picked up that guitar, he wasn't playing the Star Spangled Banner. Or at least it didn't sound like the Star Spangled Banner. Practice, practice. So how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. The results of placing our mind, stories of the past, concerns of the future, negative thoughts and emotions. It's not pleasant. It's not helpful. It actually, we forget to breathe. The day of autopilot, lack of awareness, very well, they feel depressed, anxious, exhausted. I know for myself, after days like that, it's hard to sleep. Those negative thoughts and images ruminate when I close my eyes. Inertly, our mind is open and spacious. We need to take advantage of that openness and that spaciousness, allowing all of those experiences to come and go with awareness, without judgment. We can decide to decrease the percentage of time that we're spending those negative emotions, thoughts of the past and future, and increase the amount of time that are spent in thoughts of and ideas that can actually lead us somewhere in a positive way, wholesome way. We place our mind on thoughts that are based on compassion, wisdom. That's what the mind will be familiar with. And like any habit, it will increase. So like I said earlier, the more we ruminate, think about the negative, unwholesome thoughts, that becomes our habit pattern there. Well, now's our opportunity to flip that habit pattern on its head. Monumental consequences can be accessed by making just a 10% shift in our awareness every day. Doesn't take much, but it does take the effort and exertion and awareness to be aware. Awareness of ourselves, awareness of others will lead to contentment. Contentment comes from knowing that everything we need is contained right here, right now, in the present moment. With this breath. Every time we rest in contentment, every time we help others, every time we see through our attachments, every time we relax into our own wisdom, we could become closer to clearly seeing our basic goodness. And then we can live our life with meaning and purpose. And again, knowing that is not enough. As Phil Knight once said, just do it. The more we practice, the greater our ability to come back to the present moment. Placing our mind on the breath, noticing when our thoughts steal our focus, and coming back to the breath. It's like finding a really nice place to live. We're satisfied, so we don't go out looking for more. We know we have enough. Phagam Trungpa Rinpoche once said, well, he often said actually, how you act when you're alone affects the rest of your life. So even, sitting and practicing in solitude, you must engage in these virtuous thoughts and actions. And the more we can trust our peace and contentment, the more we will see its power. With that sense of contentment, that discursive thinking is easier to detach from. The result will be complete friendliness, harmony, lack of agitation. We're no longer creating our suffering. Possible. As Lama Surya Das says, you just need to awaken that Buddha within. Now, what we've been practicing so far today, shamatha meditation, calm abiding, awareness of our thoughts and sensations, and recognizing that and coming back to our breath. That's where it starts. Okay. Like I said at the beginning, I don't believe there's any shortcut away that formal meditation. But having said that, we don't sit to become good meditators. We don't sit to become good at awareness of our thoughts while we're sitting. We sit because we want to create awareness and contentment in our lives when we're off the cushion, so to speak. There's a story that I'm fond of this woman who was meditating for years with a teacher. And at some point she got pregnant. And she knew that, at least for a while, her sitting meditation days were over. And she felt lost. And she went to her teacher and she said, I don't know what to do because I can't sit. And he said, your baby is your meditation. Everything that you do is your meditation. How often do we brush our teeth and not recognize we're brushing our teeth? Do today, what did I do yesterday? Everything except, really watching that toothpaste go on the brush and feeling it on our teeth and gums and, the flavor of the toothpaste and all those sensations that we're missing out on. When washing dishes, just wash dishes. When having a conversation with somebody, just listen. But absolutely everything that we do is practice. And autopilot is not. It takes us away from that. It takes us away from that awareness. I think that's why I love riding my motorcycle. Well, one of the reasons I love riding my motorcycle is because for me, I feel obligated to maintain as much awareness and focus as what I'm doing is possible. It's a dangerous activity. And the moment I drift away, anything can happen. As you may know, I drive a school bus. Okay. I'm responsible for 50 young people sitting behind me in that bus. I have to maintain complete awareness of my surroundings and my actions, as well as best I can theirs, while driving. Well, I am not a perfect person. I am a human being. And earlier in the year, driving my route, and I had driven probably at this point 200 times this route. I do the same thing every day. Actually, 4 times a day, pretty close to it. And I had something on my mind that distracted me from what I was doing. And instead of making a right turn to pick somebody up, I made a left turn. I lost my focus. I lost my awareness. You know, thank God that was all that happened. But that's what happens to us every day when we're, on autopilot. We can easily make that left turn instead of that right turn. So every small act that we do in every moment of every day gives us the opportunity to be in the present moment with full awareness. As you know, here at studio when we practice, we do sitting meditation and walking meditation. Okay? And walking meditation really is that, in a formal way, is that gateway between sitting and working in the world. Okay? But that's something that we can practice whether we're walking through a park, shopping, walking through the house, the neighborhood, wherever we're walking. Maintain that awareness of our feet, and maintain that awareness of our surroundings without judgments. And when we find ourselves lost, coming back to those things. Art, a wonderful expression of mindfulness. I use daily reminders. Okay? I get emails from, I think, 2 or 3 different organizations every morning I wake up to that have a quote on them from a teacher, from an author. Okay? Some days they pertain very much to me, and some days they don't. But I have a habit of checking my email within the first hour that I'm awake. And it's a great way for me to connect with a teaching that helps me stay present and aware. Plethora of apps, to utilize, whether it's, Calm, 10% Happier, Insight Timer. There's plenty of those tools to use to help us track our meditations, to listen to talks, to keep us within the wisdom circles of maintaining awareness. Sangha, okay? The people in our lives are Sangha. One of the 3 jewels of Buddhism. Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. I need people in my life that enrich it, that make me a better person, challenge me, question me. And those people help keep me on the right path. Of course, there's other meditative disciplines, yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, mantras are another tool that I've used since the very beginning to help me stay focused. And that was something that I was introduced in the Awakening the Buddha Within by the Lama Surya Das. And I just wanted to read a little bit about what he says on that. The section that is called The Treasury of Sacred Sound. Prayer as sacred speech. And it starts off with a little quote by Gandhi. It says, "My greatest weapon is mute prayer." And Lama goes on to say, in theistic religions, prayers are addressed to a supreme being or higher power. In non-theistic Buddhism, as we pray, we are not petitioning for something so much as we are reaffirming our intentions and assertions and asserting our vows. So then he goes on to say, mantras are sacred words of great power and blessings. In most Asian countries, including Tibet, mantras are still typically chanted in original Sanskrit language. The word mantra literally translates as something to lean the mind upon. And that's what a mantra can do. Mantra practice can be relied upon as a quick, effective, and powerful way of focusing, stabilizing, and freezing the mind. It reinforces mind training. It enhances our basic intelligence, wakefulness, concentration, and present awareness. So what I started to do very early was, as soon as I wake my eyes, I say the following mantra. May all beings be happy and free from suffering. May all beings find happiness in the cause of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering in the cause of suffering. And may all beings live in peace, free from hatred and greed. And then I say it for myself. May all beings find happiness in the cause of happiness. Find what brings us joy, brings us contentment. May all beings be free from suffering in the cause of suffering. Well, we learn the cause of suffering is craving, wanting things to be different than they are. Grasping onto the good, pushing away the bad. And living in peace, free from hatred and greed. We don't have to hate. It's okay to want. We all want things. But when that want becomes greed, becomes all-consuming, that's what we need to be aware of. So for me, waking up with that as a daily reminder sets the tone for the day. It's something that I may have to come back to multiple times during the day when things, don't go my way. So eventually everything that we do becomes mindful awareness. If we choose. And we have that choice. So as I said, what we have been doing is the meditations, the shamatha meditations. And the other style of meditation is Vipassana meditation or insight meditation. And that's where we don't necessarily come back to the breath every time a sensation or thought arises. We explore it. Okay. So I'd like to offer more of a guided meditation now along those lines. On this meditation is on the breath and the body. Sitting in a comfortable, attentive posture. Allow your back to be straight, not rigid or stiff. Feel your head balanced on your shoulders. Allow your face and jaw to relax. Your arms and hands resting in a comfortable position. Attentive to what's happening within your own awareness, right here, right now, without judgment. As you sit, begin to notice the sensations of breath. Notice for a moment how your abdomen moves on each in-breath and out-breath. Slight movement of your chest and shoulders. Even the gentle flow of air through your nostrils. Find the spot in your body where the sensation of breathing is most vivid for you at the moment. And as best you can, try and keep your awareness on that spot. You breathe in, you're aware of the in-breath. Breathing out, be aware of the out-breath. Simply observe the breath going in and the breath going out. You'll notice the awareness shifting away from the breath from time to time. And that's perfectly normal. Our thoughts will wander into fantasies, memories, concerns, things that we need to do. When you notice the mind has wandered, meet it with that spirit of friendliness, without judgment. You don't need to do anything about it. There's nothing to fix. You didn't do anything wrong. So rather than forcing it, try and become curious about what it feels like to be breathing again. And as you do that, you'll find that your attention is naturally drawn back to the physical sensations of breath as it moves through your body. We'll practice that for a few moments. We've built a foundation of calm abiding. I invite you to expand your awareness to include your senses, sounds you're hearing, sights, even behind closed eyes, any smells or tastes, physical or emotional sensations that come across. Also including your thoughts. Allow these sensations to naturally arise and naturally fall away. Stay with these sensations and gently allow them to go and pass. There's no need to try to control or focus on them. You may notice the mind attempting to interpret these sensations, to give it a label or a name, and create a story about it. Sound you hear may remind you of something. Thought wanders into a fantasy. This is how stories of the mind creates and quickly hide the sensations that spark them originally. How easy it is to be separated from the reality of the present time experience. At any time you find yourself carried away by a particular experience, or you find yourself lost in a thought, try and bring your awareness back to the breath, and then gently return your attention to the flow of sensations. Rather than being drawn into the mind's stories and thoughts, try to remain attentively focused on the changing sensations themselves. Let these pure sensations fill your awareness. invite you to be curious about specific experiences. What is the texture of the physical sensations you're experiencing? What does an emotional sensation feel like physically in our body? Try to investigate the direct experiences of each sensation without resorting to interpretations and labels. There's no need to describe, just observe and feel. We allow a sound just to be sound, a thought just to be a thought. Can we pay attention with pure openness, pure awareness? Notice that all of your sensations appear and disappear, simply change. Notice how the flow of your sensations is constantly changing. Nothing stays quite the same. Nothing's quite certain. From moment to moment, everything in experience is changing. Senses are impermanent. Likewise, what is sensed is impermanent. See if you can notice the ending of one sensation, the beginning of the next. This meditation begins to come to an end. Recognize how you've spent this time intentionally aware of your moment-to-moment experience, building the capacity for opening the senses to the vividness, to the change, to the vitality of this present moment, expanding your skills to be curious about and open to whatever presents itself without judgment. So, autopilot, state or condition in which activity or behavior is regulated automatically in a predetermined or instinctive manner. It's habitual. That's how we go through life. And in many ways, that protects us. It's not all bad. Um, but it does limit us to experiencing the present moment. If our suffering is caused by grasping and pushing, clinging, we're constantly ruminating on the past, concerned about the future. We're not here now. We're missing out. Could be on something big, could be on something small, but it's on something. So what's it take to change? It takes desire, it takes effort, and it takes compassion. Through the simple act of sitting in meditation, we're doing all of those things. We sat down because we had the desire for something to change. We sat on the cushion for the allotted amount of time. That took effort. And every time we come back to the breath and we do it without judgment, we're building compassion. Incorporating these practices into our daily life, we gradually become more aware of our autopilot tendencies. And we learn to disengage from those. Remember that being mindful is a journey. It's not the destination. There will be times when our minds wander. But with gentle persistence, with that effort, we can cultivate a more present and engaged way of living. I know that's why I do this. Because within present engagement, there truly is contentment. There's peace.